Hi there, welcome back to Northlight Photographic Workshops, and welcome back to part two of my little series here on developing film. As you can see, I've gone ahead and developed a couple of rolls of film since last I saw you, and if you did not see that first video, you can click up here right now, and you'll see the one on my new Leica and on developing film. So, what I'm going to do now is get onto the point of actually storing my negatives, which is something I haven't had to do for a long time because I've been, cataloging all of my things digitally on a Drobo and, a storage device here in the studio, and I haven't had to deal with negatives in quite some time. So it's a lot of fun. I dug up my print file sleeves here. Now, print file is the way I go. I've had these since back in the day, but I have checked online. They are still making them. I'll leave a link below to the print file archives. They make all different kinds of negative sleeves in boxes and storage boxes, those kind of things. I highly recommend them for storing your negatives. It's a lot better than just putting them in envelopes someplace or in glassines or that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do here today is cut these up and put them into the sleeves. Now the ones that I use are they're the style number 35 7Bs, which means basically that they're set up for a binder. They've got 3 rings in them, 3 holes in them for a 3-ring binder. They're for 35 millimeter, and they are 7 strips. So it's going to be 7 strips of 5 that I'm going to be cutting out to put in here. So I'm going to cut my negative strips up in 5, and I'm going to put them in here in order so that they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I can have them permanently in here, and I know in what order they are, the correct order that they're in. Now I also use I use a storage file number that I've used for years, and I haven't actually used it on film in quite some time, but basically it's the date, the first 2 numbers, the month, the second 2 numbers, the day, the third set of 2 numbers, and then a -1, -2, depending on how many rolls I've shot that day or processed that day. So basically the way that I would set this up would be, this would be 23 for 2023. It would be, I'm in July now, 07, and then the date, which is, I believe, the 15th today, so 1/5, and then it will be -1 and -2. Now I know that I didn't actually shoot them on those days, but I know it's somewhere in that area. So it just helps with my cataloging, and hopefully it will help with yours as well. I highly advise doing it right now and not just doing this to get the prints out really quick because you want to get to looking at a photograph really fast. It's best to just kind of go through your workflow, as I always say, consistency of workflow. Develop the negatives, dry them, cut them up, put them into sleeves, proof them, and then go ahead that way. And that way you'll stay nice and organized. So basically you're going to need a light table. I like my little LED light table now because I can use this also as background for photographing my negatives, which is the way that I proof them now, rather than putting them on a scanner. And again, I believe I have a video out there on that, and I'll put a link to that up here right now as well. I don't think I'm going to go that far with you today. I'm just going to get the negatives copied, cut up and put into their sleeves, and then I'll go about maybe proofing 1 or 2 of them for you before we close out this video. So I've got my print file sleeves here. I've got a few left from the old days. I'm going to be ready to slide these in. What I want to do next is to come over here to the light table and pull my sleeve out here. Now you can see here probably that these first two frames are really nothing. So I'm going to cut back to those and cut them out. And then I'm going to, well, actually I'm only going to cut one out right to there. And then I'm going to go and cut, count out 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cut right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cut right there. 5. Another one. got to be really careful to cut in between the exposure frames. Sometimes I mistake, a little mistake, and I'll cut a little bit off, and I don't like that. I like to have a little bit of border around each image. So I'll come down here to 5 again. Actually, the best thing to do here is to put on my glasses so that I can actually see what I'm doing. Five, and then I come down to the very end. So then I'll just take my sleeve out real quick, and I'll take and slide the first one in. Now it's best to do this right away also to keep the dust factor down. You know, the faster you put them into sleeves after you've cut and dried them, the more protected your negative is going to be and the less problem you're going to have with dust in the long run. So, got number 2 there, and as you can see, I'm putting them in the correct order here where I've got, you know, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, 6. So they're sequenced correctly in the order in which I've made them. Now, the negatives will also, and especially depending on the time of year when you're processing them, be it dry or humid, they can get some curl to them, which I really never liked very much. And also, when I'm processing my negatives, I rarely go through any kind of a hardening process. I don't like to harden my negatives, and that also helps with firming up the film base. And because I don't do that, I've always had a little bit of a problem with some curling of my negatives. But I'll happily give it up for not going through any hardening process. Now you can see how sometimes they'll curl up like this. It's a bit of a problem, but not really. Once you've had them in the sleeves for quite some time, they'll stay flat. So there we go. For right now, I'm going to set this one aside, and I'm going to come along and I'm going to cut up my second roll here. Now, so I'll go down to 5 there. Keep them in sequence. Pull out another sheet of my print file preservers, and once again, in the order in which I made the photographs, I put them into the sleeves. I can see that I've got some really nice negatives here from these first couple of rolls of film. I'm real excited about it. Some of it was just in Mackinac City, which is a city close to me here, a little resort town, where I was making some photographs at a restaurant, a Jamaican food restaurant that I like to go to, and also I made some at the ice cream parlor where my son works here in Harbor Springs. But then I also took a roll to the Bliss Fest, which I've been going to for some 40 years up here in northern Michigan, which we just had the last weekend. Had some really great performers there, including May Erlewine and Molly Tuttle and Valerie June. And I took the Leica there and I did some photography of some of the things going on at the festival, some backstage things, and hopefully I'll have some good images here to share with you as well. So what I am going to do after this is we'll take a little break in the video here, and I'm going to set up my copy camera. There you go, I've got another one. So now I've got 2 rolls of 36 that I've photographed, which is great. First film in 9 years, 8 or 9 years. But what I'm going to do now is get everything set up with my camera to be able to make photographs of the negatives themselves. As I explained before and in a video that was linked up here, I now scan my images by using my Nikon D850 because I get a really high resolution photograph of the negative 1:1. Now what I do that with is I've got a nice 60mm macro lens here that I'm able to use on the camera. I'm able to get in really close 1:1 with the frame, and I'm able to copy them over. So if I photograph them on a low ISO, I'm shooting Tri-X. This is all Tri-X film that I like to shoot. Bit of a high grain film, but if I copy that on a low resolution, say an ISO of 64 on the camera, I get almost no grain from that, and it's almost as if I've just, been able to digitally copy that piece of film 1:1. And then I use those again in all of my various other processes where I can make digital negatives and I can make salt prints or platinum prints, what have you of them. And I'm also thinking about getting back into doing some silver printing again, although I'm not quite getting there yet, but I've thought about digging my old Bessler enlarger out of the attic up here and getting it set up in the darkroom and going back that way as well. So if I do it, I'll take you along for the ride. But anyway, let me get everything set up here, and then what I'm going to do is make some photographs of these, some scans, so to speak, just of a few of the images to proof them and show you how they ended up coming out. All right? So now I've got my camera set up. This is my D810 that I'm going to use here for this one. I have gone through the negatives here, and I did find one specifically that I'm going to share with you and that we're going to work on. I'll only do one right now. But this is one that I made of May Erlewine on stage. I was backstage looking out at her performing to the crowd, with all of the crowd looking back at her, pretty enthralled, and it's just a gesture that she's using that we'll end up photographing here. Now, the way that I like to do this, normally, as you can see in a previous video that I've done on copying my negatives, is I'll set up my tripod and I'll set up my camera to copy that. Now, when I'm doing a good final negative, that's the way I'm going to do it. But for right now, to show you, I'm going to do this handheld. And the way that I'm going to do it is by setting up my shutter speed here at a shutter speed of 250th, and I'm going to put it at like 5.6. And I'm going to be able to handhold the camera and get a good enough negative right now to be able to work with to show you what the image is going to be, and just so I can see what the image is going to be. I'm really pretty excited about this one. So what I'll do is I'm going to pull out the particular negative that I have, and I'm going to hold that aside here. Now, what I also do when I do this is I set up a piece of glass. If you've seen this video in the past, I have a piece of glass that I use to photograph the negative through. Now, I can press down on it, and I can hold the negative into place. And I use a little piece of anti-Newton glass so I don't get any rings. I've used regular glass. It's no problem. I don't have any problems with it as long as I'm not in a super humid environment. But as you can see, what I've done on this as well is I've taken some gaffer's tape, and I have masked off a 35mm negative area. Now, the reason I do this is just so there's not a lot of extraneous light blowing in when I'm making this image, so that I can get kind of the best digital image of this negative as possible. So what I'll do is I'll set that down on here, and I'll mask out the negative correctly the way that I want it. And then I'm just going to take the camera and hand hold it. And what I can do is just hold it down into position, and I just autofocus on it. It's really good right there. And I'll just do my metering. Just a straight zone 5 metering. There. Now I've got a couple of exposures. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the computer here, and we will go and I'll work out the negative as you see it. I'll invert it, and I'll do a little bit of magic to it, and we'll see what we get, all right? So bear with me here just one more minute. Okay, so now I've got the image file downloaded into the computer here, as you can see. And what I'm going to do now is just do a simple inversion on it to see where it is. Now, I didn't go through, as I said, I didn't go through the painstaking kind of copying method that I would normally do to make this a finished image. This is just a proof, just so I can see what it looks like and just so I can show you what we've got quickly here. So here you can see I've got the image here, and I'm going to go up here to image, adjust, and we're going to do an invert on that. Now, as you can see, it's pretty blown out, but I can correct that for our purposes just by using an adjustment layer of levels. So I'm going to open up our levels here, and you can see on here that the histogram is pretty well flat. So I'm just going to pull in the low end here, and there you can see the image is becoming much nicer. Pull in the upper, right like that. Let me bring it down a little bit lower in the bottom end again. There, now you can see that we've got quite a nice image here. Let's go full. Now, of course, I would go through and really fine-tune this image and give it a little bit of toning, that kind of thing, so that I could proof it to see what it was going to look like when I actually made a print. But you can see here a pretty good idea of what we have, so this is pretty exciting. First time in a long time that I've done this with a roll of film. Now, as you can see, one of the cool parts of this too is not only the idea that, you know, I'm playing around with a piece of film again. It adds a whole new dimension to it that I didn't realize that I was even missing in the shift from film into digital that I had done. I mean, just the idea of this anticipation that you get, and, you know, wondering if it's going to come out. And the idea that I've got 36 exposures now, you know, I mean, on a roll of film that at one time cost me $4, but now costs me $13. So I'm being a little bit more selective about the imagery, about the images that I'm shooting, right? So it gives me much more of a connection with with what it is I'm witnessing, actually. And that's why I felt when I was photographing May here while she was singing to this crowd, I just felt such a connection with the whole event that I normally wouldn't have felt. If I was up there shooting this with my digital camera, you know, I'd want to get the shot, so I'd be just firing off images. I'd just bam, 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 bam. I'd be shooting whatever I could. I wouldn't really be thinking about the image that I was making, if you know what I mean. And in this case, I was thinking about it. You know, I was watching her, and I made several exposures that I can see in the negatives. There were probably about 5 exposures I made while she was doing this. And this by far was the best, simply because of this gesture that she made to the crowd, and the crowd is looking at her all enthralled, and it almost looks to me like a tent revival where this is a preacher speaking to the crowd or something. I mean, she was holding those people in the palm of her hand, and by me getting that particular gesture, I think conveyed that story a little bit more, and the fact that I was shooting it on film made me be a little bit more present, if you know what I mean. Maybe I'm just speaking esoterically or something here, but really, I felt much more connected. And when I actually made that image, I was actually looking for this on the roll. When I made that image, I knew it. Boom, the hair went up on the back of my neck. I knew that I'd made that image. And I hadn't had that feeling in quite some time. And I'm not really sure that back when I was shooting film regularly, that I understood what my connection was at that time, or what I had actually lost in going over to this digital capture method that I've been doing. And again, this is not to disparage the digital. I don't want to get into that old fight. I'm not about that anymore. I mean, I'm going to continue shooting digital imagery. I mean, believe me, it's much easier than doing this. But what I'm saying is, I'm glad that I still have this opportunity, and I hope that we all, you know, take part in this a little bit just to kind of keep it alive. The reason everything has gotten so expensive is because not many of us are doing it anymore. But fortunately, there's still enough of us doing it that keeps them manufacturing these materials for us. So I hope you'll delve into it a little bit just for that. But for me, I really feel it feels really special. I'm really happy to be doing this again, and I can't wait to load up another roll of film into the Leica and get back out there and do it again. So anyway, I highly urge you to get into this stuff. Again, the link below is for the print file. I'll even link to B&H down below where you can get film and chemistry to process your film with. But I highly urge you to give it a shot. You know, I mean, you don't need a darkroom anymore, really. You know, you just need some place where you can have a dark space to load a roll of film. And after that, you can do everything in the light, and you don't even have to print it in the darkroom if you don't want to. It's just this experience of working with something more tactile. I mean, it's just really cool to have this piece of film that I don't know really what it's going to look like until I go through the business of processing and things. So anyway, I hope you'll have some fun with this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please tell a friend, that whole thing. And I hope you have fun doing your own stuff, all right? Take care of yourselves, and bye-bye.